Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Where's My Llama? I mean, Door to Door.
I think your llama is right behind you. That was the shortest show we've ever had.
Bye. Yeah, and that's all I'm going to say.
Hi, I'm Lainey Mays. I'm glad to not see you guys, but talk to you guys. See you in the chat.
I'm Essie. Nice to be back after that week away.
A week of turkey. A week of tofurkey. So we're no authors today, just ussin talking about books. And wait, hold it. Where is he? Lovely to see. And yeah, every so often it's nice to just talk some books and we're, give the authors a break and, and we want to hear what you all are reading. Oh, my internet connection is unstable. So at some point I may be frozen, me and my llama. So whatever. So who wants to talk first? And who's here? Who's here in Facebook land?
Let's see. Kimberly Minky. Hello. Elizabeth Silver. Sarah Lee. Oh, hi, Sarah. And yeah, Casey Davis. Oh, Sarah Lee. Yes, Sarah. Chris has moved to a different team. You did miss something, but he's still at HarperCollins, so he can't get away from us that quickly. That's right. He might make an appearance one day on Facebook Live. So
he's still at Harper. I don't know if you said that. He is.
He's still at Harper, yeah.
But we're not physically at Harper a lot of the time. So I can't remember the last time I actually saw him in person.
I saw him when I went into the office. It was like probably it was that week Essie and I went in. I can't remember. It was like early November.
Yeah.
He's doing good.
Christopher. Yeah. We're happy for him. We're happy he's still under the roof.
Yeah. Let's see. Janet Lockhart, Vicky Nesting, Barbara Jenko, all of our friends, Jennifer Winberry.
That.
I hope I didn't leave anyone out, but all of our friends.
Yay. So let's talk about a couple things. So we're going to talk about some books. And I think before we talk about some books, we should mention our world famous Book Buzz Part 120. Yes. January 13th, correct?
January 13th.
All right. So, Lainey, do you want to put is the link up there?
Going in now.
Okay, cool. So, January 13th, we've done several of these now since we've been home. And they're really cool. And we're talking about books that are coming out way later. So, and set aside 2 hours. So we'll have some fun. We'll have an author who will talk for just a little bit, but just break it up from us and talking. But yeah, we'll be talking about summer books, maybe even some early fall. Right, Lainey?
Yeah, we actually have some, you mean thinking today, we have really exciting ones today, but we have some ones all the way to fall for our big buzz.
Yeah, so join, click on it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, okay, and that link is there. And so should we talk about some books that we're loving?
Yeah.
Good. Oh man, can you guys hear my cat?
A little bit.
Murphy.
Jennifer Winberry says that she is very worried that the llama is going to chomp your hair.
I'm going to change it halfway through to something else. All right. So I guess I shall go first. Okay. I'm going to talk now. You guys have heard me talk about this book, but I kind of can't stop talking about it because I love this author so much, John Searles. His book is coming out in March and it's called Her Last Affair. I think we have a jacket there. John, this is his first 8 years. And he wrote Help for the Haunted, which made the inaugural Library Reads list. Strange but True, which was another. He writes such compelling, great characters and a really sort of very psychologically taught storyline. He's a great storyteller on the page and person. So as I'm telling you about him in this book, keep in mind if there's any opportunity for him to speak to your patrons, let us know, because he is funny and warm and kind and tells a scary story. So this one is, as I say, it's character driven, it's psychological suspense, and it's about three people whose lives are intertwined. And so we meet these three people. Skyla, she lives alone in the shadows of this drive-in movie theater, and I think that's on the jacket. Is that on the jacket? Yes. So she lives behind this drive-in movie theater that she and her husband ran for like 50 years, and he dies in an accident. And so now she spends the nights, sort of ruminating over her marriage and, regrets and things and deceptions, because every marriage has its secrets. And then she rents a cottage on the property to a very charming British man named Teddy Cornwell. And then 30 miles away, we meet Linnell, who's just about to turn 50. She's feels like her marriage and her life is kind of dried up. She's lost her job because of this questionable photo. My wife is outside the window feeding the birds. Anyway, so she lost her job because of this questionable photo from her youth that suddenly appears on social media. So she is having this online affair with her very first love. And it's a man that she hasn't seen in nearly 30 years. And his name is Teddy Cornwell, the charming British fella. And then we go to New York City and we meet this guy, Jeremy, who's this very sort of bitter writer. He's kind of failed. Everything's kind of dried up for him as well. And he accepts an assignment to review a new restaurant in Providence where all of this is taking place. And that's where he met his first love. And so he's going to go back and see if she's still around. So that's it. And it's just this sort of like, film noir. There's a lot going on there, and you think that they don't have a whole lot. There's not a whole lot intertwined between the three, but there is, and you'll have to read the book to find out how it all works out. But he's terrific. There's a great quote from Chris Bajalian who says, John Searles brings the misfits among us to life with the clarity of Carson McCullers and then scares us with the brilliance of Stephen King. Her Last Affair is a perfect page-turning example of the heart and horror that makes me love his work so very, very much. I am telling you, he can write a book that could scare the pants off you. And I remember reading his book well into the Strange but True, well into the night, and heard a noise that my cat also heard, this yowling crazy cat back in the background. And I looked at the cat and I looked at Murphy, I said, you heard that too? And I was just so freaked out reading this book and could not stop. He can tell a fabulous story. So John Searles, Her Last Affair. Love.
Essie, which one do you can go for it if you want.
Awesome. Let's start with Cartographers, please. Okay, fun. So one of the reasons why I love the Cartographers is because it places such a big emphasis on the libraries, especially the New York Public Library, which was awesome to see. I mean, maybe it's because I live in New York, but that's just a lot of fun. And The Cartographers in general is a story about a woman who finds a map in her deceased father's desk, and it leads her on all sorts of crazy adventures. And it's the way that it was written was just, I'm sorry, I'm losing my place. I'm sorry, I lost my notes. Lainey, can you take over for a second? again?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, no
We'll come
problem.
back. I wanted just to say that the Book of M, which was the book that Punk Shepherd did before this, was really great as well. And I'm not always a sci-fi fantasy person. That's not really where my head lives a lot of the time. And it just like, I love a big concept, or I love them, but it's just, that's not usually my go-to. And I read that one and it just was so captivating and so heartfelt, because they're like going across the country and it's after a apocalyptic thing. It's a big grand adventure, but also like human memory and love and loss. And so she does such a great job, like really doing a lot of dark and heavy topics in these kind of fantasy realms that kind of put this otherworldly spin on things. And so I just really encourage you to go check out her backlist too.
She spoke at was it Philadelphia, Lainey?
PLA. Mm-hmm.
PLA, yeah. And Pung was just so wonderful. She was just so lovely. Oh, Lainey, tell a funny story about how we didn't know who she was. She cut her hair.
Yeah, she I think her author photo had like this really long hair, and so she came to a dinner at Alliot. No, what was that place? Oh my goodness, I just went blank. What's I want to say Alliot, but it's not the one we love in Philadelphia.
Oh, it'll come back to us. Oh my God,
it's Mediterranean.
We're all
having Zahav.
So Zahav.
Good.
We were all excited about the food anyway, but we had this dinner. And we all get there, we're talking. I think Beatrice Williams and Simon Winchester were there. We're talking, and she comes in and we're like, hello, who are you? And because she shaved her head, so like she looks nothing like her on her photo. And it was funny, but she's so kind and did a great job. Yeah, talking about the book.
She's another person who would be wonderful for libraries. So if you want a great storyteller, very unassuming but very powerful, she's really lovely, and as Lainey said, can really tell a good story. So Punk Shepherd.
Yeah. And somebody asked about arcs. There may be, I know everything we're talking about today except for one are available as e-galleys, and we put that link in there so you guys can get reading. But let us know if there's something, and we can let you know if we do or are gonna have physical arcs. So
okay. Essie, are you okay?
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just keeping up with everything that you guys just said. That was most of what was in my notes as well, just how she's a really incredible author and a really incredible person. And just the story itself, it's dark, but it's written in such a way that you just kind of get sucked into this amazing fantasy world. And it's a world surrounded in a library. It's a world surrounded by books, and it's just something that you want to get into. And once you get into it, you can't get out of it. And that's what I was trying to say before, but it just did not come out.
That's okay, Essie. You're in a safe place. You're with librarians. It's all good. And that was perfect. I mean, sometimes what comes out, and when it comes out. So thank you, technology. We love you and we hate you. All right. So who's next? Lainey?
Ooh, I have some good ones, but I'm going to start with Fake by Erica Katz. This has been one that I've really been championing and telling people about, so I really encourage you to go read it. If you read The Boys Club, that was her novel before this, and that one was kind of more legal thriller. It was she was a lawyer. This is a totally different take, but it still has all of the great things that you found in The Boys Club at its center. So this is a story about a woman named Emma, and she works in New York doing forgeries. I didn't know this, but there are firms that create fake art of Monet, like crazy artists, and they put them in museums while they're cleaning art, or if it's on display at another museum so people can still see it, but it's not the actual thing. Had no idea that was a thing. I learned a lot, but she works at one of those because she kind of can't hack it as a artist herself. She's got this past and she can't get over it. and it kind of stands in the way of her art and her feeling to get that done. And so she becomes like one of the best forgers there. Like everyone wants to work with her, including Leonard Sobetsky, who is this art collector who kind of seems maybe to have some sketchy things going on, but we're not really sure. He spends a lot of money, works really hard, and he always requests her. And he comes to her one day and says, like, what do you want that out of this? You know, you're eating ramen, living paycheck to paycheck. How can I help you so that I can get you on the side to do some pieces for me? And you won't have to go through like the commission. I'll just give it all to you. And so he helps her get a job at one of the biggest art galleries, and it's very prestigious, and does some work for him on the side. She is invited to go to Hong Kong for this fair and gets to ride on the private jet. And she's just like living this amazing life. She befriends a woman who's an Instagram influencer in the art world. And so it talks a lot about like, what is art? What is our influence? Is our social media presence and our view of everyone looking in on us, is that an art form? And all of this really high pressured world of like becoming the best or becoming someone to look up to. And it's just a really fascinating book because it is like page turning. You want to know what happens to her. You want to know what else is going to. And she kind of gets wrapped up in some things she shouldn't be wrapped up in. And I don't want to give anything away, but I just really appreciate when a book has a satisfying ending where like, there are some consequences, but everybody's, you know, gonna figure it out, and you get to learn something in the process. So I just really, really enjoyed this book, and it comes out, let's see, February 22nd, and the eGalley is up. So take a dive. And if you have some time, the Boys Club was really fabulous too.
Nice. Yes, the Boys Club. Erica Katz, she can put pen to paper and write a great page turner. Cool jacket too. Is that cool? I like it.
Yeah, and she does a lot with like women in maybe like non-traditional places, or in like kind of like the Boys Club, this man's world. Like she's thrown into some really high stakes things in this art world, and she does a lot with like those pressures, familial pressures. It's deep. There's a lot to discuss. It'd be great for book clubs.
Yeah, good. The next book I'll talk about, unless Essie, do you want to go next? Are you good?
You could go next if you want.
Okay, you're doing great. Mercy Street, Mercy. Jennifer Haig, out with another jacket that I love. We had her on Facebook Live a couple of weeks ago. And so you should definitely go back and watch that if you can, because it was a really cool conversation that we had with her. She is so brilliant, and all of her books sort of take on, I don't know, sort of hot button issues without hitting you over the head with it. And her characters are so well developed. And what I love about this jacket, before I get to what is on the pages of the book, is that she was telling us that was it the art director lady who cut out each individual image, each individual person on this. So if you notice, none of those are the same. Each one was drawn and cut piece of felt. I think it's felt, and there's something. I love the texture of that, and I love the individuality of that, and it does speak to what's inside the book, which is the story of this woman, Claudia, who works at this clinic, women's clinic, in the heart of Boston. And she has been there for almost a decade, counseling patients. And the name of the clinic is Mercy Street. And so it's all of these different people going in and out, women who are in crisis, and Mercy Street offers more than healthcare. It's, for many, it's a second chance, because there are women going in there for lots of different reasons. But outside the clinic, they're getting anonymous threats from anti-abortion demonstrators that they appear at the door. They, you know, they congregate right outside. They protest. The protests intensify, and it's unsettling to say the least for everybody. But the point of view of the book is from part of the point of view is from Claudia, who is becoming I don't know, sort of unmoored, right, by what's going on there, and she manages her anxiety with marijuana. She just, you know, she gets buzzed, and she has frequent trips to her pot dealer, Timmy, who features in this book. So you've got her, then you've got her pot dealer who's got his own thing going on, and there are random people who come in and out of the book, including a man who is an anti-abortion crusader who has set his sights on Mercy Street, and he wants to protect the unborn. And that character, his name is Victor Prine. You kind of see where, okay, I have to be careful how I say this, because you see life through his point of view. You see what he's been through, and you see why he is the way he is, why he has the convictions that he has. And it's very hard personally to like him, but I can appreciate in a weird way where he's coming from. And so I want to read this quote now. I hope I have it here, that Jennifer, okay, here it is. This is a quote that put this book into perspective for me, because these characters are so fully fleshed out, and it's easy to hate them. It's harder to understand them. And she says that in order for her to write, I'm paraphrasing, but in order to write these characters that you can empathize with for a second, you have to understand them. So what she says is, writing a novel and reading one is an exercise in extreme empathy. Novels teach us what it's like to be other people, to live lives entirely unlike our own. That's what she says. And it just put it all together for me. And she, as I say, she's so smart. She's just brilliant with words written and spoken. And I think that she takes this on in such a responsible way, but without, you know, sort of not, I don't know, she's not hitting you over the head. She's telling a story from different people's lives. The Washington Post called her the gifted chronicler of the human condition. There's a great quote. Uno secundo. Wait a minute. Rebecca Mackay, Pulitzer Prize finalist for The Great Believers, says Mercy Street is propulsive, urgent, and essential. Haig writes with uncommon insight and compassion, and yes, mercy, about people whose ideals are so strikingly at odds that we can only wait for their lives to collide. I was riveted and transported and want to hand this book to everyone I know, and that's what I'm going to do. So please read Mercy Street if you haven't. And if you never read Mrs. Kimball, which was her first book, which I loved, and all of her books in between, check out Mrs. Kimball. But read Mercy Street, because it's right now. It's right now.
Nice. Okay. Which one are we feeling?
The Cage. We could go to Cage. Okay. So The Cage was one of my favorites. I started reading that at like 10 p.m. One night, and that was not a smart idea because I ended up staying awake until like 2 or 3 in the morning because I just did not want to stop reading that one. It's a pretty crazy premise. I've never really heard of anything like it, but basically 2 women who are the only people in a building at their job at the moment. One, they couldn't be anywhere different. One is like this director of HR. She is obviously well put together. She has like not a hair out of place. She is completely in her element when she's at work. And then the other is drowning in her work. She can't really seem to get a grip on anything in her life at the moment. And she's just kind of a hot mess. I know, like, yeah, she's just kind of a hot mess. And they both get into an elevator. They decide to call it a night. They don't really say 2 words to each other before they step in. And by the time the elevator hits the bottom floor, one of them is dead. And I read this whole premise when I saw this title and I saw what it was about, and I was just like, oh my God, that seems amazing. Like, how do you get from there to there? And this book is just, from page 1, it makes you uneasy, it's unsettling, and honestly, that's kind of what I love about it, because it's just uncomfortable. You know, from the very beginning, that everyone has a secret and that everyone is kind of in their own dark and twisty ways. And you have this woman who's a lawyer, the hot mess one, she's a lawyer. And at the very beginning, she's obviously kind of put as a suspect because, sorry, spoiler, the one who ends up dead is the director. But the lawyer, by the time she gets to the bottom floor, she notices that the police are kind of looking at her sideways, and she starts putting together her own kind of defense, and makes you wonder, well, why would you do that? You have nothing to worry about, right? But anyway, it's just a really great story. And I loved reading from the lawyer's point of view, because you see how she thinks, and she's thinking 10 steps ahead of everybody else. And it's just so interesting to see play out. And it reminded me of another book that we have, which honestly has nothing to do with this one, but it's How to Think Like a Lawyer. And people should probably read that one too, just in case you're ever in an elevator and things don't quite work out the way that you thought. But no, I really love this one. This is something that you should read if you want to just get through a book within like 24 hours tops, because this is not one that you're going to be able to put down.
Somebody pointed out, who was that? Janine said the shadow against the elevator door is very creepy. I didn't notice that, but you're right. That is
Isn't
creepy.
it? I didn't even really pay that much attention to the cover. I just like the story for what it was, but the more that I look at the cover, it's just, yeah, that is as unsettling as the writing itself.
I didn't notice that shadow either. That's really weird.
Ooh.
Yeah, just take the stairs moving forward.
Vicky Nesting says, never get in elevators.
Well, if it's 16 floors, I might take chances.
Yeah.
Unless you're going down.
2 people were stuck in the elevator in my building for an hour.
No, thank you.
Yeah, 2 kids.
It's like a fear of mine.
Yeah. It was a little unsettling, but they eventually got out.
We have that book, Elevator Pitch by Linwood Barclay, and that his pitch for that, his elevator pitch, no pun intended, was really good, because he was just like, it goes down, who will open? Like, that book will make you scared of elevators.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, for something completely different, I want to talk about Becoming Forrest by Rob Pope. So if you are a fan of Forrest Gump, you will know exactly what we're talking about. But even if not, you will appreciate this man's journey for just like what it was, because he did an amazing feat. It's one of my dad's favorite movies, so I could probably scene for scene tell you exactly what was happening because it was always on in my house. But that scene where Forrest Gump runs across the country 5 times because he just felt like running, really stuck with Rob. He is a veterinarian. He is from Liverpool. And when his mom passed away in 2002, she told him to do something with his life, do one thing that meant something. And so he set out on this journey to not only run across America, which is a huge feat, but to do it 5 times, just like Forrest Gump, which is insane. Like it says, there's a great Guardian article, which I will put in the chat, but he ran 15,621 miles over 422 days. So from 2016 to 2018. And he went through 33 pairs of shoes. Like he literally ran through 33 pairs of shoes. Like that is insane. He holds the Guinness World Record for fastest marathon dressed as a film character. And he did it all for charity. That's what his thing, he wanted to make it count. And so he's raised 50,000 pounds for WWF and Peace Direct. And he just did this crazy thing, and he was on news stations. We've seen it for sales. They showed us several interviews with him. He did interviews as he went. His partner came along and had this old van, so they kind of were like a 2-person operation. And I just, that is like really hard to do. Like most people have, you know, doctors with them, and they have to train them a certain way so they can run all of this, and he just did it on his own. I don't know. I'm just so impressed by this man. I don't want to run down the street, much less 5 times across America. But they, in this article too, which I'll share, they talked about the first people to do that. And he's the first to do it 5 times. So, well, because it says he saw that part of the movie, and instead of thinking, I think it says like, oh, that's cute, he was like, is it possible? So to put that into theory must have taken a lot of planning. He also is the host of the Red Bull podcast, How to Be Superhuman. So he has a great accent. You can listen to him on his podcast. And I think there's a lot of lessons about like overcoming and loss too within these pages. So even if you're not a fan of Forrest Gump, that's fine. You can appreciate it for the biggest feat that it was. It's becoming Forrest.
And when you say feet, I guess you mean F-E-A-T, but I thought F-E-E-T.
I did indeed, but I appreciate the pun.
It was my llama. He whispered in my ears, like, say feet, F-E-E-T. That's so funny. You're funny.
He also like got his hair cut and wore the same shoes that Forrest Gump had. Like he left no detail unturned. He really did it the right way. So
I love that. Run, Forrest, run, says Janie Herman. Such a good book. Okay. Let's see. Shall I talk about, hang on a minute. What am I meant to? I wanted to talk about By Her Own Design. And then I'll talk about The Great Mrs. Elias after. All right. By Her Own Design. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So this is historical fiction and is based on the life of Anne Lowe. As the subtitle says there, I believe it says it on the jacket. A novel of Anne Lowe, fashion designer to the social register. This is a true story. This is about Anne Lowe, a Black woman and a granddaughter of slaves who rises above seemingly insurmountable struggles to become this very successful, I wouldn't say well-known. That's the whole point of this book, is that she wasn't well-known, which is a crime, because she became a designer, seamstress and designer, and designed Jacqueline Bouvier's wedding dress, her marriage to John Kennedy, among others. I mean, she got some great breaks by people specifically by a woman who spotted her talents and gave her opportunities that she really never would have been able to probably get on her own. So she was raised in Alabama, Jim Crow, Alabama, and her grandmother, who'd been a slave, and her mother were both seamstresses. So she learned from them. But she had this real, she was a designer. She became just this, I think it was an innate gift that she had to design, to make these beautiful, gorgeous dresses. And but that came later. She eloped when she was 12 years old to this man much older than she, and he ended up becoming a raging abusive alcoholic, and she just saw any dreams that she had dashed because she was stuck. But as I say, this woman, a socialite in Tampa, saw what she was doing because she was trying to make money and working and doing seamstress work. And she gave her this opportunity to sew and design clothing for society's elite. And so she had, I'm not going to tell you so much about what happens, because I don't even know if I want to say it's the joy of reading it. It's the amazement of reading this woman's story, how she started with less than nothing and like rose out of the ashes of this horrific childhood. And it was a child. She was a child bride and then had a child herself. And just against all odds, became this person who was so gifted and talented and got a chance and became this designer to Jacqueline. She designed Jacqueline Bouvier's wedding dress, again, among others. And it's just a fascinating story. I couldn't stop reading, and I couldn't quite believe what I was reading. The story goes back and forth to, like early 1900s and then to the 50s in New York City, and what happens to, she gets a gift of a dress shop and what happens there. And you just kind of can't believe that you're reading the story. But it's really, really powerful and enlightening. And it's a story that needs to be told. You have to know about Anne Lowe. And I'm sure some people do, but I didn't know about her. And I just think that this is, this is quite a tale, quite a tale, true tale. So it's historical fiction, but it's the author's really done her homework here. And I encourage you all to read this book. It's Piper Hughley's book, By Her Own Design, a novel of Anne Lowe, fashion designer, to the social register. It's not coming out until June, but I've been talking about this book, so I'm sorry for all of you who've heard me blabbing on about it, but I'm going to keep doing it because it needs to be read. So thank you for listening.
Virginia, you've done such a good job like championing this book, because every time I hear you talk about it, I'm like, everyone should want to go listen to this. But like giving this woman her name and what she did, like putting it out in front of an audience, like you're doing such a great job with that. So
thank you, Lainey.
That's important.
Yeah. It is important. That name needs to be on everybody's lips. Because that's the crime. That's the crime, is that people don't know. She didn't get any of the accolades. She didn't get any of the credit back when these dresses and these designs were being made. They never assigned her name to it, So now we can do that. We can all do that. And, I mean, all right, I'll go on about it just a little bit more. But you can find her dresses in museums. And anyway, there's so much to know about her. And so, but the real do is reading the book. So.
Yeah. And just a note, this is Piper. This is the author. It's not Anne Lowe. Just we don't have a cover yet. So,
right, we don't have a cover yet. But boy, there's some really cool photos. All you have to do is Google her, and she's just this tiny, tiny woman with this great big brown glasses and this great big hat, and she just owned it. She just owned it. But boy, what just a strong person.
Yeah, and Kimberly Minky points out, sounds like a lot of hidden, powerful female heroes of World War II that are now being recognized. It reminds me a lot of Kaya Alderson's book, mm-hmm. Sisters in Arms, but more specifically, it's wonderful that women's stories, but Black women, especially during World War II, made a difference. I feel like, or maybe this is not World War II, but like Black women in history who don't have any of the credit. I hope that that's a new trend that we see. I think that would be wonderful. But Kaya Alderson, Sisters of Arms, so in Arms, that's a book if you're interested in this and you want World War II stories of African-American females.
Right. Oh, Barbara Jenko just put into the chat. Let me see. Barbara Jenko, my computer is so slow. That's the photograph. Now, if you can just look at that for a second. Barbara Jenko just put a link in there. There she is. There's the face to the name. There's the woman who we need to honor. Cool, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara. I was looking at that last night.
Just wanted to point out Sheenan Reed Robinson. She wanted to know the name of the book again. That was By Her Own Design now, right?
Yep, By Her Own Design. That is now the title. And the other title that Lainey was comping it to is Sisters in Arms by Kaia, Kaia Alderson. Yeah, thank you, Barbara. That's very cool. You just did that. Love it.
Well,
okay.
Flipping the script entirely to somebody entirely less redeemable, but I would say almost like just totally crazy character, but insanely funny. A slight more emphasis on insane. Marie Confidential by Tim Dorsey. This is the 25th book, I believe, with this character, Serge Storms. It's 25 books in, which is just amazing. You have so many different stories. And what's best about this is that it's not like the same story, just in a different setting or, slightly different characters. No, it's like completely different every single time. I don't know how you can keep this up for 25 stories long, but he does. It's just brand new every time. And this one is no different. It's absolutely crazy. Crazy. It takes place in Florida, which a lot of his fans really tend to love because it's just one of those things where if you know, like if you're down in Florida, you know exactly what he's talking about with every crazy thing he says. And this story in particular is about Serge trying condo living, which seems innocent enough. It's totally acceptable to want to go and live in a condo. Why not? Unless you're surrounded by a bunch of partying vacationers and people who are starting gang wars and flying bullets, which just kind of makes it a little less paradise and more exactly what Serge is used to, because he is not a stranger to danger and, honestly, in his opinion, fun times. I just really loved this whole story because it's just fun from the very beginning. It's just fun. It's like Breaking Bad with a comedy, and that's like the best way for me to explain it. And I just love the fact that there's so many stories behind it, that there's just a huge backlist behind it, because sometimes when you read a story, you're not quite ready to say bye to the characters just yet. You don't want to say bye to these characters that you've come to know and love for all these crazy, strange reasons, and you don't have to. You have 25 different stories to read after this. So start with this one. And for librarians specifically, it does come out, I think, sometime in January. I think it's January 2nd, I think. But regardless, that means that tomorrow is the last day to vote for library reads. And that is January 25th. So that means tomorrow is the last day to vote. So if you know, you know. It's a good story. Definitely worth a vote.
Nice. Okay, am I in the right order? I'm next, right?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah, go for
it. My last one is one that I have really loved, called Birds of California by Katie Tugno. This is an author you may recognize from her New York Times bestselling 6 romantic young adult novels, including 99 Days and You Say It First. So she's really well known in the YA space, but this is her adult book. So this one, it's a rom-com, but it has so much underneath it that it really reminded me of, Christina Lauren. That's a good author to comp it to, but also if you read The X Talk by Rachel N. Salmon, that's kind of in that realm where it's like you have this great romance and all of that, but these characters are really great on their own, and they dive deep into their background with a lot of past and things that they're going through. So it is a romance. There's some romance in it, but it is so much more than that. It's about a girl named Fiona St. James, who is a former child star. She was on a television show called, you guessed it, Birds of California. And when she got a little bit older during this filming, she went through some things, and she kind of had this public crash and burn, and the tabloids just kind of followed her everywhere and just like relentlessly pursued her and called her crazy, and she kind of went on a destructive path and lost her mind in some ways because of them. If you're following the Free Britney movement right now, this is going to sound familiar. It's perfect for people who want to dive into like the psychological stuff behind that, especially in the entertainment industry. And there's a lot of like LA and entertainment in this book, so that becomes kind of like a character. And then so she has gone through all of this, and now she is in her early 20s, and she's working for her family business. She's kind of out of the spotlight. She does not want to be back in it. She's in a good place. She takes care of her family. Her mom has passed away, so her dad's kind of like in a fugue state. He doesn't really know how to deal with things, so she's just dealing with a lot. And then we have Sam Fox, who was her older brother on the TV show, but they really weren't that much of an age difference, and it was kind of a missed love, nothing really came of it. But he is in a current show that got canceled, and so now he's scrambling. He takes care of his family, so he needs the money, and he is just not doing very well now after this popular show he was on. And so in order to kind of hold his place in Hollywood, he signs on for this reboot of their show. The only problem is Fiona does not want to do this reboot, so he is tasked with making her agree to it. And within that, they kind of find out more about each other, since they didn't know each other very well before, but they rekindle kind of old sparks and learn about each other's past. There's people that they both know that have affected them very differently in their lives. So like I said, there's some darker topics in there as well. But it just seems like more, like I said, those two comps, but there's this underlying story of trauma and the weight of family obligations. And it can stand out to a more general audience. It's not a sweet romance with like a quick wrap up. It's a realistic journey of acceptance. And there's a little bit, I don't want to say mystery, because it's not like in the traditional sense, but you are kind of wondering what happened to her, and you don't find that out until later on. So there's that aspect of it as well. I really, really enjoyed this one. So if you're a romance fan, you got to read it. And if you're not, try something new. And let me see, I didn't have a quote, but that's Birds of California, and it comes out in June. So you have a while, but the e-galley is up, so you can get reading.
Yeah. And people are loving the jacket. It is beautiful. It's so rich, Yeah. It's really lush. Yeah. Nice. Okay. I think this is my last book. So, wow. 252. We've done okay for ourselves. So this is, wait a minute. I got to get my notes together. The Great Mrs. Elias by Barbara Chaserabood. This is, so this was supposed to come out earlier. So some of you may remember that this was postponed. And so now it's back. This is Barbara Chaserabood, who wrote the best-selling historical novel Sally Hemings, now brings us the true story of historical fiction about one of the richest Black women in America in the early 1900s. This is a wild novel, wild story wrapped in a novel that's just steeped in history. So in a nutshell, because we were kind of running out of time, but Hannah Elias was one of the first Black millionaires. She was light-skinned, and she was born at the end of slavery. And she secretly, she married a white man, and they later divorced. And she invested her alimony in the stock market. She would get, she was passing as Southern European, and she used a series of white men to invest for her, and did quite well for herself. And she was living in this amazing, she had a 5-story, 20-room mansion on Central Park West. Yeah. But when an old lover murders her current partner, her secret life becomes public, and she's hounded by the press and white protesters who accuse her of stealing the wealth of whites. So this is a real page turner. It's just, you know, the Gilded Expanse, real life characters and this period that captures, you know, New York is changing. It's just it's book club catnip, and it's really exciting to have this publication by Barbara Chaserabood. It's very, very cool. So that is coming out on February 8th. So you don't have to wait too long. And you know, the author is a celebrated poet and novelist, and she's a sculptor. And she's been edited by Toni Morrison and Jacqueline Onassis. I mean, it's been quite some time since she wrote a book, but worth a wait because this is pretty neat. So that's The Greatest Ellis, a novel based on a true story. How are we doing? Oh, my little llama. How are we doing? Are we good?
Doing good. Yeah.
Do we have any more books? We're done?
Always, but in today's repertoire, no.
Do you guys want to do a round robin, like a lightning round?
Oh boy.
Sure. I mean, of like things we're just reading.
Well, you know what? Yesterday we had a visit with a virtual visit by Molly Shannon, who of Saturday Night Live fame, and she has written this book called Hello Molly, in the form of Hello Dolly, and it's Lainey can speak to it. She has spoken to this book more passionately than I, but I have to say she spoke to the sales folks here again via Zoom, and it is so touching. She is so she's so authentic. I mean, honestly, I mean, what you're seeing here, what you see in interviews with her, that's who she is. I mean, she's got a real story to tell about her dad. I'm not going to spoil anything, but you know, back when we did Kate Mulgrew's memoir, which, you know, you heard me talking about that book nonstop, and I honestly don't think that you need to be a huge fan of Kate Mulgrew's work to read her book about her aging parents, to read this woman's book about her family. I mean, because that's the whole thing. It's, you know, it's very interesting if you are a fan of her work. As Lainey can tell you, there's lots of information, lots of real interesting tidbits that Lainey kept going down the rabbit hole on Saturday Night Live. But there's a whole that's the backdrop is her life and what informed her as a person, what informed her as a performer, what informed her as a mother. And I just, I think that this book is filled with heart and honesty, and it's funny, and it's very touching, and it's very poignant, and I think it's very brave, and I highly recommend taking a look at it. So if you love Molly Shannon, or you don't, or you just haven't seen her work, still check it out, because stories are stories and lives are lives, and this is a very interesting one, a very brave one, I think. There's my 2 cents. We don't have to do a round robin. I just wanted to throw that out there. Lainey, do you want to say anything about it?
I loved it. I mean, I like Molly Shannon. I'm a fan, but I haven't seen some of her stuff in a really long time. And so there was certain chapters, especially the SNL ones, where I was like, I don't remember that one. So I was like, you had a companion YouTube page up where you were like reading the backstory of all of these skits, and she worked so hard. She was waiting tables, and she was treating everybody like CEOs of businesses, even if they worked in the back. You know, she just made friends. She would fill audiences for her one-woman show with someone she met on the street. She did things 100%, even if it wasn't for someone who could help her. And she worked so hard to get where she was. And so that's an interesting story, I think, to show the resilience, but also, as Virginia mentioned, there was some loss in her life at the beginning, and so she deals with that all the way through. But and like her dad is very complicated. he's a very complicated man, and their relationship is very complicated. And she did a good job of showing a really well-rounded person, but also like how much he loved her and how much she loved him, and they were, you know, each other's biggest fans in some ways. So it was really sweet. I think, like David Spade or Amy Poehler, any of those books I would read because I love the SNL backstories, and that's in there. Like the celebrity stuff, you get some fun backstories on people, like that's all in there. But this is something more because it is deeply personal and really about her family. So yeah, I was surprised at how much like it seemed therapeutic to me. I'm sure when she was writing it, like how much came out. Yeah. So
Yeah.
hello, Molly.
Hello, Molly. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Lainey. That was great. And I love that you said that yesterday, like that she gave her dad that whole, 360 warts and all, but love at the base of that relationship was just this mutual admiration for each other. So anyway,
she creates characters, and she talks about this too, like creating characters that like you know them and they have darker things too, and you see the good and the bad, so she gets people, I think, down to like who they are. And I think she can kind of understand reasoning, like the reasoning behind what people do, and so that really shines through too.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the comments, and if there's anything that anybody has, looking forward to reading The Great Mrs. Elias. Thank you, Vicki. And yeah, it's so cool. I can't agree. I was just thinking about that. Do you think that you are biased about Irish family like I am? Probably. Biased in a good way. Yeah. And Elizabeth Silver lady, she wants to know, what library are you in?
Well, this is the New York Public Library / my house, because it's a Zoom background, but it's from the New York Public Library. So thank you, NYPL. So,
Essie lady, are we good? Is it time to give a dating game kiss goodbye to everybody?
Do we want to mention the 2 books?
Oh my God, yes. I'm sorry. Thank you, Lainey. Can you do that? I'm sorry. Yes. What's the matter with me?
No, that's fine. I added Hello Molly, so you guys can get an eGalley into that catalog. Thanks, but also we have an upcoming Door to Door on the 14th, right?
December 14th, yes.
So we have 2 debut novelists, Shadows of Pecan Hollow by Caroline Frost, and then we also have The Tobacco Wives by Adele Myers. Tobacco Wives is available as an audio, so feel free to download and listen to that one, but the eGalleys are both available, and we're excited to have them on Door to Door.
Yeah. Fans of it's just a little positioning of these 2. So Shadows of Pecan Hollow, we've had this conversation about how to say pecan. Where the Crawdads Sing, we'll find a similarly lyrical, tough page turner in this East Texas-based novel about a young woman coming to terms with the abduction and abuse that marked her teen years and the new life she's struggling to make with her own young daughter. This is this is going to be big. This is 75,000 an ounce, and that is Caroline Frost. And Tobacco Wives, we have that. I don't know, do we have the? We have it in the chat, and that's another debut historical novel set in the 1940s, during the ascendancy of big tobacco, and it follows a young dressmaker who's moved to North Carolina, which is a big, prosperous tobacco town, to sew for the wives of the tobacco executives. But of course, she starts to see that this is not all that it is to be, and so it sort of shows what female factory workers are going through, and how this work supports the wealth of the tobacco industry. But the woman at the center of the story comes to understand that the substantial health problems of the female factory workers are a result of the industry that they all count on. So she wants to report it, but she's not sure she should. It is the 40s, but it's a really interesting story of female factory workers, and it's very well researched. And so the author's family there's a family history of that whole story, and abusive workers, female friendship, motherhood. So they're really two different, but somewhat, there's a connective tissue between these two books, and they're both debuts. It's really exciting to bring them on. So that's December 14th, and we'll be back on Tuesday. God knows what we'll be doing. Probably feeding my llama again. I don't know. Anything else? No?
Yeah, the catalog is available to you. Sign up for our Crowdcast event. We're going to have a new promo picture for you soon, so sign up and you'll see it first.
We're going into the office tomorrow.
Yeah.
Gonna wear our hazmat suits and go in.
The llama has to stay home, Virginia. We've told you this, though.
Imagine if I took a llama onto the subway.
I wouldn't want to be.
And it wouldn't be the first time. Oh my God. So yeah, so don't forget that's January 13th. So, but we'll talk to you between now and then, and we hope to see you next Tuesday. And we thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to us talk about. Let's see, only if he's masked. Yes, I will put a mask on my llama. And that's not something I thought I'd ever say today. But there you go. First time back in the office, my second time. Essie and Lainey have gone in a few more times than I have. But I guess, I don't know, maybe like just a couple. It's a weird time. So we'll see each other again. Yes, I've only met Essie once in person. So weird, but talk a lot on the Zoom. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Be well. Take good care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.